And we are live.
Oh.
All right, Caleb said it's 39.
39.
That sounds
Episode
right.
39, boys.
I believe so.
That sounds right. We're swinging for the fences.
Swing away.
Do you have a way to start yours, Chad, or I can roll the ball here?
Start mines. What is mines?
Oh, I didn't say mines. That's not the grammar that I use. That's wrong.
Well, you
That's a
said
problem.
yours, but obviously since it's referring to me, it's mines.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Let's.
The
Oh yeah, go ahead.
U.S. rejects asylum case. Is that the one you're talking about, or which?
Yeah.
one?
So I mean, I think obviously the best place to start there is like, oh man, what do we each think qualifies for asylum, especially based off that article?
Yeah. Well, that's.
Yeah. Well, because I can see. I'm not agreeing with Jeff Sessions. Don't get me wrong, but I can see where he's coming from, right? Like, what does qualify for asylum? Like if someone slaps you in your face, does that qualify you for asylum? That's exaggerating, but when we have so basically what I'm trying to get at is when we have, especially let's reference the woman in the article, right? When we have a woman who claims spousal abuse in any form, do we have a responsibility to call that asylum and take in everybody who's being abused in the world? Or, does where she live, and I understand that this matters to the asylum case, but where she lives, shouldn't they have the responsibility of like trying to make society better?
Right,
You know what I'm
but the
saying?
argument would be that there's
Sure.
not a government or some sort of administration in place that does protect them, right?
Mhm.
So you're being domestically abused, but
Mhm.
you can't reach out to anyone because nobody's going to help you. I assume that's
sympathetic to-
also part of the argument, right?
Yeah, I would assume too. I think you're right, but
again,
I get it. I'm sympathetic, but dude, if everybody who was mistreated could just come to the U.S., like that's not a policy that would work either.
That's
I'm not-
just
yeah.
It becomes obviously there's plenty of people we should be taking in because we are a rather large country and we can absolutely handle it, but to a certain extent, right? I mean, depending on the hurdles that you're going to set up for who can claim asylum and come into the country, you can't just be taking on whole swath of people every year. I mean, I wonder, do we know what the numbers are and how many people the U.S. takes in every year?
Let me Google it real quick. I've seen something where it's drastically lower in the Trump admin, which I don't think anybody should be surprised about.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
So right here it says in the article that you sent for BBC, it's unclear how many cases are affected by the ruling, but activists say that at least 10,000 people per year are granted asylum in the U.S. based on domestic abuse and gang violence. So it's safe to say maybe 8,000, because I always assume that people who are on one side or the other tend to overinflate the numbers. Sure. So we'll say 8,000.
So 8,000, is that, how big is that in terms of trying to take people on? What's the cost of letting people claim asylum? You know what I mean? I guess you just have to weigh the costs and the benefits and set appropriate hurdles. I don't know that. See, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to find numbers right now. Give it a little context.
Because again, another thing you could bring up, and it's something we see a lot in terms of migrants or whatever these peoples are referred to. They show up on the shores of Italy, they go to Greece, they go to Spain, and some of them are considered economic migrants, essentially where there's basically no opportunity back home, so they're moving to where there is work and opportunity. And it's like, would you grant that? Like, do you think that we should be taking people on in terms of like, oh, there's no opportunity back home?
Oh man, yeah, that's tough.
I would argue, let's look at our own country first, right? Those mountains in West Virginia where all those coal mines are out of business. I'd say that they're under some economic distress. Same thing too when you're taking in all these folks that are on the basis of domestic abuse and gang violence. Pretty sure we got our fair share.
I agree. I think that I feel like there's different ways to approach both of those problems, whether it's at home or abroad. I mean, at home we need to do a better job with inequality. That's putting it mildly, and I feel like that would help. I mean, that's a broad statement, but you just got to focus here first. I don't know, man.
I think the other thing that gets me too is that you're talking about the basis of gang violence. Like, so I think unfortunately when it comes to domestic abuse, I mean, that's a tough topic, right? Because that's not something that you can kind of pinpoint other than just having shitty parents, I guess. How to fight against domestic abuse. But gang violence, I mean, what is a gang violence based on? A lot of it, quite frankly, is based on drugs. Yet again, we continue to leave marijuana as a Schedule 1.
I know.
Sessions continues to try to prosecute people for marijuana. And quite frankly, I have yet to really see a lot of people's argument on, a lot of people right now are for legalizing marijuana. What if we did take it one step farther and you legalize cocaine? What kind of a dent does that make in
right?
In our drug war, quite frankly, and if you treated cocaine like we do tobacco today, we tax it quite a bit, and I know unfortunately people have addictive personalities, and that's going to happen. Sure. But would I rather have someone with an addictive personality go to a clean, I'm just going to use, a drugstore of some sort, no pun intended, but get, appropriate doses of this stuff, and when they walk in there and they purchase it, I don't know. I feel like there's a better way to do it, and we could really make a dent in gang violence.
Yeah, and relating it back to asylum seekers, like, it's time for politicians to think outside of the box. It sickens me that the answer is to either take in more or take in less for this kind of a problem. Like, maybe ending the drug war and really taking back a lot of the funds that these cartels use to just, completely destabilize parts of the world would help opportunity there. Holy crap, it just might. I mean, where do they get most of their money from? From running these illegal trades, mostly the drug trade. And America is super rich, so it's got willing people to pay for it. So if you take away that line of income, what do they have, right? And in turn, that might do more for asylum seekers than admitting them even. Like, I'm just sick of this crap. It's time for politicians to think outside of the box. It's always one or the other. It doesn't have to be that way.
Right. So other than fighting the drug war in a different way, or legalizing certain drugs, or trying to make a dent in that way, what other things? I mean, you're saying think outside of the box. Where's your outside of the box? What are you thinking?
That would be my first outside of the box. Legalize drugs.
All right, let's say that's off the table for whatever reason.
Right? Okay, I think, to be fair, I think that's already thinking outside the box, but that's just me. But all
sure.
Right.
Well, I guess my point here is let's push the envelope.
Sure.
What else can you do?
We could after
kind of throwing you on the spot.
But no, you're fine. And I got a little bit of rebuttal. We could after doing that, we could kind of roll out a little bit of what the Marshall Plan was at post World War II. Do you guys know what the Marshall Plan was? Where the U.S. seriously invested in countries that were destroyed monetarily and otherwise to rebuild them. And when you make an investment like that, you get to rebuild these countries in your image, and you can mold them to what. And I still, even with Trump as president, believe that this country is sliding, but is still the best country in the world for sure. So if you can remold these post-gangster, post-drug cartel countries in an image that's more appeasing to, the way we do things, that's a positive over the long run. I mean, that's a little bit what happened with Germany and France and Western Europe.
So you want to strong arm these countries into Western values.
So basically what I'm saying is redistribution.
What I'm hearing is imperialism.
Not imperialism.
Yes.
Because do we own Germany?
Chad.
Do we own France? Whoa, hang on. to be fair, my rebuttal would be we did the Marshall Plan, and
well,
we don't.
hold on.
But you've exerted a large amount of influence over those countries.
But what's wrong with
So the Marshall Plan, we loaned them a lot of money so they could buy all of the industry shit that we were churning out, being the only industrial country standing after World War II.
Yeah, it's in your interest.
That would be a little different these days, though. We wouldn't benefit so much from the Marshall
when the end
Plan.
goal is Europe gets rebuilt, and look at where they are now. How can that be a failure? How can that be selfish? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, we've seen it in South Korea and Japan,
and just from a like Google, I just want to correct Chad on one thing. It was not a loan; it was a give. They gave money. There's no repay here, so I think that's.
So they gave them money to buy our industry.
They gave them money to rebuild.
They essentially gave money to them to give back to us.
Yes,
right.
And that's fine. And I think you guys are right. But can you refute the results? I don't know that you can.
Sure. What
I'm
saying though is that would probably cost us more as a country these days to invest that kind of
for sure.
Then
money.
taking in asylums.
Maybe. I mean, to rebuild a place like Syria. I mean, that's a huge investment.
Yeah.
Decades of commitment to that, and that's what it took for Europe. That's what it took for.
Sure. I don't know that. And I don't know. Sure. I know lightly about the Marshall Plan. Let's not kid ourselves. I'm no expert, so I don't know. How long it took, how much money was spent. If it was, I would say it's feasible because look at the real world results. But there's a lot of things there. You're right that need to be considered. So
we failed Iraq.
Talking about outside the box, I'm gonna throw one at you.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Too far outside, but
go ahead.
Right. If I whiff, I whiff.
Whiff, dude.
What if on top of legalizing like cocaine, taxing it appropriately? Same thing with weed, marijuana, just across the board. And we use those tax dollars that we've gotten, right? Mm-hmm. And for a large chunk of it, what we do, have you ever heard of, what's that group called? It's like Workers of America. Like if you're a kid and you need a job.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about? They've got like labor camps and stuff.
What?
That sounds shitty. I didn't mean it like labor camps, but there's
no.
They're on chain gangs. They break rocks all day.
Well, no, I see what you mean. Some sort of like integration camp, so we could put them there, and then like
what?
Somehow like
no. I'm talking about for American kids. There's a program. Fuck, I forget what it's called.
Something Corps, isn't it? Like Army Corps.
Yeah.
Or something.
So what is it again?
I'm trying to Google it right now.
Okay.
Trying to get there.
What would we do? Invest in like American children?
The Civilian Conservation Corps.
There's a bunch of different ones. Like I just googled one. It's U.S. Forest Service Youth Conservation Corps.
Peace Corps.
There's the Peace Corps. But all right, hear me out. Right, instead of the Peace Corps,
Job Corps. Isn't it just Job Corps? There we go.
Right, and if I'm not mistaken,
you right now, dude.
A lot of them you can they'll pay for your housing and they give you a stipend and
sure,
right, they do all sorts of stuff for you. But let's see, Job Corps is the largest free residential education and job training program for young adults ages 16 to 24. We connect you with the skills and education you need to get the career you want. So explore the perks, live, find your purpose, master a trade, grow your career. Like that's the whole thing, right? But listen to this. What if you took those Job Corps kids, right, and we really put some freaking oomph behind it, and we sent these kids to those countries in which that we've just legalized drugs that would impact it significantly, right? And we use those kids, to build infrastructure in those areas, and by virtue of that, they're going to spend some money in that area that they're working in and building in, right, and kind of jumpstart an economy that way. Also, while investing in growing, you know what I mean? I don't know, infrastructure in a country that we just kind of kneecapped as far as economic value.
Well, illegally.
So we're outsourcing American workers,
but we're paying them. So let's say they spend 2 years in Colombia,
right?
And they did that building roads, right? When they come back to the States, then after that 2 years, they have the credentials to go ahead and get a job here building roads and bridges, right?
Right.
And so you've done two things. You've gotten a kid to be more invested in government a little bit more, right? Because typically speaking, people who serve in public service have higher rates of voting and government involvement than others, correct?
I'm about public service for everybody. For a little, I am.
Right, but instead of joining the army and going to war, quote unquote, you could join the Job Corps and build roads in, I don't know, fucking you name it, wherever that we maybe determine that we need this, right? And then you can come back and continue to build your career here, building infrastructure, or maybe you decide you want to go around the world and build infrastructure, or whatever the case may be, right?
Mhm.
And in order to build that infrastructure, what else do you need down there? You need people to make food, so you can have culinary careers. You need people to be mechanics because they've got to operate the vehicles that transport people back and forth and operate heavy machinery, right? Carpenters, because you're gonna have to build temporary housing. There's all sorts of potential to like kind of build out after you've just kneecapped an economy to some degree. So you're doing two things, I feel like, right? You're making a dent in the cartels. And number two, you're helping another country build a bit of infrastructure so they can start developing economically. And when you do that, what happens? Like when we start building out more economically, people have more money. And what do they do with that money?
Now, didn't we do this kind of to some extent in Iraq, but instead we hired private contractors to go out there?
Correct. And that's where we went wrong, in my opinion.
Right.
We spent a shitload of money on private contractors in places we shouldn't have spent it.
Yeah.
But that being said, when you help another country develop economically, then what? Right? You're building that relationship with that country because you have a lot of people, mixing cultures, mixing ideas, right? And then they come back to the States and a lot of people love to talk to other people that have been able to travel and they have a better insight as to the world and you're becoming a bit more global in your mindset and your thinking, right? Same thing with the people that live in that country. Right? Now they've met Americans. They understand what a lot of Americans are like. They don't have that resentment towards America, maybe, right? To some degree.
Yeah.
More involvement.
So what you're saying is, don't let them claim asylum here. Build them up at home and pay ourselves to do it.
Right. Pay our own people. Because
Marshall Plan.
What are those people are going to do? Well, Marshall Plan using American labor, American industry.
Right.
Like, if you think about it, who gets paid the most in American industry? It's not the American worker, right?
It's the industry owner.
Right.
Nice.
But if I send a bunch of laborers, especially kids between 16 to 24, right? They have a purpose, they have an idea, they get to visit another country.
Syria.
Well, I mean, let's talk about Bolivia. Let's talk about Colombia. Let's talk about...
It's still kind of scary countries.
Nicaragua. Well, sure, but again, what you're doing, and I think this is the reason why I bring this up. This is going to sound very much imperialistic, but when you put a bunch of people in a location and you allow them to intermingle for an extended period of time, what happens to that area, to the culture in that area?
Race war.
Okay, not what I was thinking. I was thinking more so, like,
I know what you're saying.
You're becoming more accepting of others, right? You're almost combating this idea of...
Yeah, but there's growing pains in the meantime.
Yeah,
for sure.
Of course there is, but
well, I would say
what's the alternative?
Long term, you're right. No,
what's
you're right.
The alternative, Cyril? Continuing the drug war?
No, I agree, dude. I'm also
asylums a year.
I'm also
You want to think outside of the box? There's my outside of the box.
Especially when it comes to drugs, I'm also a big fan of. Like, we should do more discouraging by taxation and not discouraging by making things illegal. Like, I'm not about that.
Yeah.
Like, we've done a really good job with cutting down on cigarette use in this country. It's not zero. It's never going to be, but cutting down just because, like, we tax.
It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be zero.
Right. No, it shouldn't be zero. It shouldn't be.
People should be allowed to. Here's the thing,
if you want to partake in something like that, then you're going to pay a lot in taxes. One, because you're hurting your
costs.
Yeah, right. You're costing society. Not even because, like, I don't even care that you're hurting yourself. You're going to cost society at some point. You just are.
Right.
So people who smoke cigarettes tend to be a little poorer, a little lower on the income scale. Those people don't have as good health insurance. What do you think happens? Taxpayers pay for it. Like, that's what happens.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then we'll take some of that money, and what we'll do is people who run 5Ks, once they cross the finish line, if they run in a certain amount of time, you get $10. You get $10.
Or
that's cash, dude.
Sure, dude. Also,
at all, not even a time frame. I mean,
or if you want to smoke a cigarette, you have to run a mile.
Or if you want to run a mile, you have to smoke a cigarette.
Oh, dear God.
Wow. Where are we going now?
Here we go. Okay, this is a society I want to live in.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
No, but I think
Imagine what happens when you finish an ultra marathon.
Woo! I think this happens a lot when we
obviously
talk about just anything, but I've seen it especially with this topic. Like a lot of times people generally think in binary choices when it comes to Asylum, but us, we're just like, it doesn't need to be binary. It can be some sort of compromise or comprehensive plan that, helps them, helps us, so it's not like those are easy to find, but
no, I think the problem that you have, though, in my very humble opinion, is finding leaders to execute those kinds of plans.
This is why we need to get special interest.
That's your problem.
Get rid of special interest.
How?
Yeah, how?
Once you leave your small bank one day and you work for another company and you see kind of bull spit,
or
happening.
if Cyril's bank gets big enough.
Yeah. Caleb never misses a chance to lob insults. No problem.
Grenades.
1. And 2.
Forget where I work.
Oh, sure. Caleb just says, because I've worked at this bank now, I just don't have experience in what he's talking about. No problem.
No, what I'm saying is right now, your viewpoint, just based on all of our conversations right now, is a very positive viewpoint because you do work for a small company and it's very integrated. Like a lot of people know each other.
Yeah.
It's very easy to be tight knit. Right?
True.
The problem is once you get to the point where you have 10,000 employees, you do lose that to some degree.
True. Yeah.
It's going to happen. So when you're trying to implement a Job Corps program, which let's say you bring down 5,000 people, just the logistics alone, that's a lot.
Right.
Not just to do it, but to execute the vision. Not, in my opinion, there's very few people that can execute projects on that scale and maintain that level of excitement and involvement for an extended period of time. Very, very few people can do that, which is why it's easier just to say, you know what, we'll just fucking.
Well, I think when you work in such a big place, it's really hard. It's not hard. It's impossible to work at such a big place like that and know that everybody cares about you. So when you know that everyone doesn't, now everyone starts to get more jaded and more jaded and more jaded to the point where even the Cyrils of the world who, I like helping people generally. I do. Like if someone asks me for help, I try my best. I don't just even those people just start to get so jaded that they just look out for themselves.
Sure.
And I think everything you said is right, but I think Chad started to go in a direction that I was thinking more when you said it. You said we need good leadership specifically in politics, and I want to know what that means because Chad's right. As most conversations go back to, special interest is a big deal. And not just special interests in this conversation, but a lot of things. I think that there is genuine people in politics here and there that try to solve problems in a real way, but they just don't get any traction.
Well, unfortunately, you have to play the game a bit if you want to get anywhere in politics.
You do. Even if you work at a place with 5 people or 5,000, there's a game.
There's a game to play.
When there's another human being involved, it's a game.
Yeah.
I loathe to say it like that because that makes everyone sound ungenuine, and that's not true. It just means that, look, other human beings, you have to deal with them somehow, and you have to, figure it out, no matter who it is. Some people are easier than others, obviously.
Well, especially when there's so much money and power in politics. Of course, there's going to be a game to play.
Right.
People fight over power.
Yeah. And when you get to that level of power.
Exactly. Right. Mm-hmm. Shall we move into the Supreme Court ruling? Or...
Yeah. The last thing I'll say is I just want politicians. I don't even want to say they need to start thinking outside the box because I'm sure, dude, our politicians aren't dumb. These aren't dumb people. Something's holding them back from thinking outside the box or really pursuing every avenue of solving problems. And I think Chad's right when he says it's mostly special interest. Like pharmaceuticals don't want us to legalize drugs. They just don't want us to do that for obvious reasons. You don't have to be, you could literally be a homeless guy in the corner. I could explain to you pharmaceuticals and weed, and in 5 minutes, you're going to be like, oh yeah, they're going to suppress that legalization for sure. You don't have to be a smart person to know that. It's right there. The conflict of interest is huge. And it doesn't just stay in that realm. It sways into so many realms. So, we just learned a few weeks ago that Michael Cohen was paid big money by whatever cable companies are trying to merge. I can't remember what it was, or whatever company. It's like AT&T and someone
some
are trying to
telecom
merge.
and Bell or some
Yeah, and they paid Cohen a bunch of money. Like, oh man, I wonder what that was for. That's crazy. So it's really tough to fight that. So super rough. But yeah, let's move on. So the reason I was so intrigued specifically with this one is the Supreme Court kind of like punted it. They didn't really.
Because it wasn't a defining decision. It only applied to this case, right?
Right, exactly.
That's they just kicked the can down the road a bit.
Right. So specifically, the conversation I want this to revolve around is not just this scenario, but every scenario in serving people. So I hear a lot of people make the claim, or at least I've heard a lot of people make the claim, well, he's got his religious beliefs, and he should have the right to refuse service to same-sex couples who are marrying because his beliefs don't line up with that. And I think when I first hear that argument, I say, okay, I think there's something there, but I need more elaboration. And I think kind of where it falls apart for me is if you think about it in the same way as far as like, especially historically, like a black person. So this guy said, no, I'm not going to serve you because you guys are same-sex people that are marrying. That's why I won't serve you. My religious beliefs. Well, what if my religious beliefs are I hate Native Americans? And people are finding out that I literally won't serve Native Americans just because they're Native American. Because my religious beliefs say all Native Americans are terrible people and don't. So what do we do then? Am I allowed to just say no to Native Americans and tell them to screw off?
I think the issue there is the validity of the religion. And right now, quite frankly, Christianity, according to all of us, right, is a quote-unquote valid religion. Now, I don't personally think that, but
okay,
I think that's the strongly held belief, right? Since if you look at the consensus is Judaism, Christianity, I mean, I guess Catholicism, even though for me it falls under Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, any other ones? Any big ones I'm missing? Right? Those are your biggest religions. Or Hindu, I could put Hindu in there probably. Taoism for me kind of falls under Buddhism, but sure, yeah, you can throw that in there. My point is that to come up with this arbitrary thing, in theory for us it works, but that's because we don't. I mean, I guess I'll speak for myself. I don't necessarily believe that other religions have any foothold or any moral ground whatsoever, right? But most people do. They look at this religion and say, most of us believe that, okay, yeah, this is kind of a widely accepted religion, even though statistically it's not. Which is why we let people get away with this.
So it has to be a certain amount of people that participate in that belief system for it to be respected?
No,
but he's right.
No. There has to be a certain amount of people that believe that it is somewhat of a valid religion. Not necessarily that many people practice it. I mean, look at Scientology.
So what's the threshold?
A lot of people believe in Scientology, yet
a lot of people are Rastafari.
Right.
Yeah, I think... Do you just refute what he said, though, Chad? Like, I see where you're going with it, but I think he's right.
How do you define an
so
religion?
Let's say the Supreme Court case was... Let's say the Supreme Court case was some guy that worshipped a rock out in the desert, and he said the rock told him he couldn't serve African Americans, so he wouldn't. If that went to the Supreme Court, what do you think would happen? I think Hilb's right. I think that person would be like, no, the Supreme Court would be like, no, you can't do that. You just can't. And I don't know how that's any different than this.
See, I don't know about that. I think that the Supreme Court would... Hold on. I think the Supreme Court would actually, for the most part, probably still make that decision because ultimately you have the right to believe what you believe. So if it's for a religion, why would it be any different for anyone else? I think, again, the difference here is that the reason why it's kind of semi-accepted is because so many people see it as a valid religion. Whereas, again, and I think it has to do with time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If I did that right now, no one would believe me. But if I did that and I maintained that for 80 years, started a small cult, and they continued to grow and grow and grow and grow, 300, 400, 5,000 years from now, people will be like, yeah, no, that's a real religion.
Yeah, that's my point. I think you're right. The difference between those two things is, one, a majority of Americans don't, you're right, not even believe in, but consider a legitimate religion. So it gives it more legitimacy, where the other is one guy believing in a rock who tells him things. No, of course not. Nobody would give him legitimacy. So I agree with you. I think it shows through in my example too, because the one literally holds water because it's legitimate because of what you're saying, and the other doesn't hold water because it's one guy believing in a rock, a talking rock. So it gets tough there. But I think if you strip away, I think if you strip away public opinion, which is tough to do, I get killed, it's a big deal, it is. But if you strip that away, what does this look like? To me, and I'm interested to hear what you guys think when you strip that away. To me, it just looks like someone who takes himself too seriously and can't just like, dude, who cares? Make him a cake. I don't understand. Like, what do you think? You're going to go to hell because you made him a cake? That's a legitimate question. Like, I want to know why he straight up literally won't serve, because I know a lot of people who are Christians that would make gay people a cake. They would say, I don't support it, but I'll make you the cake. Right. So what's the student's deal?
I think,
you know, so
I think as long as people who find themselves being denied service have ample opportunity, like reasonable, ample opportunity elsewhere, I guess you can't grind too much at the idea of a bakery doing this. But obviously, big problems arise if this becomes commonplace.
Yeah,
and
of course.
It's still just like, to what extent do you protect that belief? Like, what if there was let's say a black nationalist owned store that refused service to white people just because, you know what I mean? Like, is that somebody that also should be protected?
That's a great example.
I mean,
or even flip the token on that. A white nationalist who,
sure,
you know what I mean?
But the black one's more intriguing because black people are still a minority, and so the end results will be different there. Because going kind of back to what Caleb said, like, if you're in the majority, you know, you have the benefit of the majority. You know what I'm saying?
Well, let's go another step farther, and let's just say, what if I'm just an asshole to my neighbor and I hate my fucking neighbor for whatever arbitrary reason? Can I deny him service?
But what service? Well, context matters here a whole lot. What service are you
what
giving
if he wants me to make a fucking cake? But I'm saying,
do you own a bakery? Do you own a bakery that serves people cakes?
Yeah, let's just tit for tat, right?
So it's the same
exact thing happened, but I just hate my fucking neighbor and I don't want to serve him. So does the government have the right to come and tell me no matter what, you have to serve a customer, regardless of affiliation, regardless of sexual identity, regardless of anything at all? I guess the crux that it comes to right now for me, and it's hard for me to answer this, but does the government have the authority to tell you must make a product and sell it to a person regardless of how you feel about anything? Because you're putting yourself out there as a business. Specifically. It's very important.
Yeah. I think two things. I think we're kind of realizing, just talking through it, why they punted. Because Chad's right. If one guy does this, a lot of people just say, all right, that guy's pretty bigoted, like whatever. If it becomes a trend, that's a huge problem. That's a huge problem. And there's obviously a threshold of what determines a trend or not. I got it. But whatever determines a trend for each one of us, think about that. If all of a sudden there's a whole bunch of people that are like, yeah, I don't want to serve gay people either, and all of a sudden dominoes start falling.
Well, think Jim Crow. Just think Jim Crow. That's all you have to.
That's tough to think about. Now, what do you do? One, and then two, I always loathe when, and I'm not trying to throw you under the bus. I know why you said it, and I totally get why you said it. But I always, whenever people say, does the government have the right? You know, the government is us. We the people make our government. We the people make our government. Okay, so this idea that like this government is some entity that's not for the people. Sure, go ahead.
Let's very much explore that, because I think we're getting into, in theory, of course, we're getting into very much why I think Trump was elected.
Yeah.
You know, because people don't feel like this is their government.
I know, and that's a problem.
Right.
Because it is. It's all of ours. It doesn't matter who's in charge.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
But if you look at a lot of people, and I won't say the majority, but enough people to make a significant impact feel the opposite. This is not their government.
Right. But when the majority votes in a person who you don't like, it doesn't mean it's not your government. You know,
there's a lot of people who disagree with you. I remember when Bush was voted in. I remember when it was Obama.
It goes both ways.
Trump voted in. It doesn't matter. I remember everyone talking about how which congressman was it that refused to go to the inauguration for Trump?
There was a lot of them, but I think the one was the big one was the historic like civil rights leader from Atlanta.
Yeah, well,
I can't remember his
it?
name. He planned like
Hold on,
a
I'm
50
looking
years.
it up.
Yeah. ET John Lewis. John Lewis.
But isn't there something very specific about John Lewis?
Yeah, I mean, he was a big civil rights leader. He was like he
No,
marched with Dr.
like
King.
wasn't he if I'm not mistaken,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna have to verify this, but
Sure.
my understanding is specifically John Lewis told Republicans that refused to show up to Obama's inauguration
maybe.
that they were being
Maybe.
being assholes. Long story short, I have to verify this, but like this is for me like, yo, what are you doing?
Well, that's literally the definition of being hypocritical. So, and I also think that it goes both ways. No question there. Do I feel like President Trump is a loose cannon who is way more bigoted than President Obama? Yes. But it doesn't matter in this context that we elected him. He won. And so it doesn't, even if you think that President Trump is a hateful, bigoted person more so than Obama, which I think so, it doesn't matter because that's the ideas that we chose to vote for and he won. And so you don't get to just stand on your high horse in 2016, but in then 2008, you were just like, well, you should just be, you should be appreciative of the moment. It's like, look, come on, that's being a hypocrite. Straight up being a hypocrite. It doesn't matter how I feel, which I just made clear, but, and I don't, it shouldn't matter how he feels. It should be, we voted for a set of ideals and that set of ideals won. I don't care if you like it or not. Dude, it could be literally Nazism. If a majority of us voted for it,
wow.
Guess what? Well,
Wow.
Chad, what do you... Well, go ahead, Chad. Tell me why you said wow. Like,
well, no, I mean, obviously, if the majority wants it, that's what's going to happen usually.
Right. Obviously, I would immediately go underground and start fighting against it and lead a revolution. But I mean, it could happen. And the way that the system works is, if it's not illegal, even if it is illegal, you can change things. You can always change laws, and we mold society. That's what we do as human beings. And we've done that here in this country for, over 250 years, and we'll keep on doing it. And
we kind of suck at it, but we're getting there.
Well, human beings suck at it.
Sure.
But we're getting there.
Yeah.
It's a lot better than, it's always better than
Working on
10
it.
years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago. So it's always better. Maybe not in every single lane.
So
but
can we?
So to
There's
give
no
you a
hard
little
line that we fall
background
on.
here,
Oh, sure.
it looks like John Lewis railed against. I hate ads.
Gotta get
John
you
Lewis railed against Rick Perry for not going to Obama's inauguration. He also stated that it's unfortunate that in 40 years, this is the first inauguration that I'm going to miss, Trump's specifically, but it turns out he also skipped or boycotted specifically George Bush's inauguration as well.
So I think
It's unfortunate.
I think
I would expect more from somebody.
Well,
I'd
I'd
like
like
for civil rights. Just saying.
What do you mean? Well, hold on. What do you mean by that? You expect more? How?
More respect.
Oh man. Okay. He would have liked some respect. He would have liked some respect in the '60s, I think, probably from some white people. But
I get that. But what kind of divisive statement are you making? Like, are you really on the side of continuing to work on relations?
Yeah, I agree. I'll say this: if John Lewis wants to not show up to someone's inauguration, I don't care, dude. If you're a congressperson, you don't have to show up to the inauguration. That's not in your job description. It's not. You don't have to. If Rick Perry doesn't show up, I don't care. It's just if you speak out about it and you make yourself hypocritical, that's when I'm like, yo, you got to stop. How about you just shut your mouth and do what you want to do? No problem.
Mm-hmm.
But, to be divisive like that, I don't like that. And to be vocal about it. If he didn't say anything and he made those decisions, we're not talking about him. But it's the fact that he opened his mouth. Do
you think that's in his head a calculated move?
I'd like to know what calculation he made.
Well, again, right before we started this, Cyril and I were talking about how we think potentially, a lot of folks in Congress make moves or say things based on, how this will get me press, how this is going to get me more votes, how this is going to get me on the side of, a favorited side of my voting constituency. Do you think maybe that's the reason why he was so outspoken about it?
It could be. I'd really like to know why, because I mean, it could be. I don't know. Because my calculation would be a lot different, but I'm also not a black guy that marched in the 60s, so I don't know.
Sure, that's fair. Neither am I.
So I don't know. I just, of course, all statements here are opinion. Don't get the torches out, people, if you ever hear this, which you won't. But I like I was saying before, it doesn't matter whether you think one person is just and one person isn't, or you think one person is like, a good person, the other's a bad person. We voted for a set of ideals. I loathe President Trump. I sure do. But I think if I was in Congress, I would have definitely gone. And you know what? I don't care unless I see some, and even if I do see some hardcore evidence of like the Trump administration, like doing some like really bad things. I couldn't even give you an example, but let's say bad enough that like it's truly is a large scandal and they're like denying people their basic human rights. Dude, even if that was happening, guess who's in charge and guess who's in power? And guess who you need to work with to get things done. All right, that's just the way I see it. So you have to work with, the power that the powers that be. I think as far as someone who leans or who thinks left, who's more liberal, which I am, that's what separates me from like when I hear like someone say, oh, that, this activist or activists say or whatever. Like when we think of activists, I think of people who want to work outside the system to try to like bring about revolution and topple the whole thing down. When I think about myself, I just want to work with the powers that be to make things better one step at a time. That's always my mindset. I'm not trying to be this, person that tries to blow everything up by lobbing grenades from outside of the system. Because that doesn't work. I don't think that works. You'd have to show me an example of that working, because I haven't seen that. So there's always a degree of like, hey, powers that be are powers that be for now, and this is how you got to get things done, one baby step at a time. I said this. I was listening to the Forever Lost episode 37, and I said something about oh crap, what did I say? Oh, I said something about Obama and Obamacare. I said I don't think that Obamacare was what President Obama had in mind. I don't think he had this whole like thing all planned out during the campaign, like, oh, this is exactly what we're going to do. I think that he's probably, if I had to guess, way more of a single payer guy, but he compromised. He saw what he had to do to take baby steps in the right direction for healthcare, and he said, how about we do it? And that's what he did. So to bring about change, I think my point is, I think Obama's way more progressive than he was in presidency, because he knew to bring about change, you just have to take it where you can and hope for the best, which sucks, but is what it is. So nobody's got any comments on that? No problem.
Well, there's I have a lot to digest.
Yeah, there is. I have one more thing that we can talk about. I'm literally just seeing this as I pulled up the article that we were reading on CNBC about the Supreme Court. So I saw at the top, and then I'm now clicking on it. Trump tells Kim in summit, "We'll have tremendous success together."
Sure.
I don't even care for anybody to read the article. I'm just going to react to that headline.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Dangerous thing to do, but sure.
Is that? I think that's putting
it was today, wasn't it?
I think that's putting it mildly, Caleb. I think that we're looking at a president who is legitimizing a North Korean leader who still does tremendously awful things to his people.
Well, some might argue. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Whoa. If there's arguments against that, I'd love to see that. But
dude, there's a handshake picture.
Where I was getting, right, before you jump on me too quick.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Is some may argue that everything we've done up until this point hasn't done anything to change North Korea in its current status. Mm-hmm. So maybe, right, if I gave him some credit, which I don't, let me make that very clear.
Sure.
Some might say this is the opportunity for him to extend the olive branch to try to make contact and see if things can get better for that country. Some might argue that.
I think that's a good argument.
I just don't think he's that calculated. That's all.
I don't, and I'm not really interested in his calculations. With that statement, I'm more interested in, yes, I think that's fair. But well, and even more to your point, Caleb, what I was about to say too is the other side of the coin for me, I was thinking already was, well, what's the alternative? You're just going to like go to war with them? Because that's a really bad option too. So it's really hard. It's a rock and a hard place. So
I think he realizes that messing around with Korea in this manner keeps him in the headlines. It keeps him, it keeps people talking about him. It keeps him on the world stage.
Well, dude, this is crazy.
If there's one thing that we know about him, is that if he's not front page news, he will find a way to be front page news.
Well, he's been front page news for the past two and some odd years.
But how many presidents have been able to maintain this level of like,
oh, sure. Yeah.
I'm the fucking man.
Well, dude, this is insane. I mean, no president, no U.S. sitting president has ever met with the North Korean leader.
What a better way to be the man.
This is literally history.
We'll see what happens.
I think nothing will happen, quite frankly. I think that North Korea completely somehow undermined its own program. And simultaneously, I don't think Trump has the nuts to really do anything whatsoever to help or not help. I think this is, again, more or less a stunt.
Why do you think Kim Jong-un?
You don't think anything will come of this?
No. I think they'll talk, they'll shake, nothing will really happen. Hey,
I don't know. I think
I'm the first sitting president to talk to him. What the fuck?
Here's the thing, though. Why has Kim Jong-un all of a sudden gotten real open to the idea of talks? Because there is something going on his end, politically or otherwise. Maybe he's afraid of coup. Maybe he's afraid of... Dude, you don't understand. Things are really bad in North Korea.
Yeah, I hear you.
There are a lot of intergovernmental politics that play out in his government. People that actively probably want to see him taken out.
Right, but at the same time, like, he also fed his uncle to dogs. Like, I don't think he's in a position to be too afraid.
Sure, but again, we're talking about a propaganda state machine. You know, he fed his uncle to dogs.
Sure, but at the same time, I also feel like a lot of this most likely has to do with the fact that they've hit some sort of stopgap in which they're stuck. They can't continue their actual weapons program because of whatever reason this may be.
Sure, they're losing their biggest bargaining chip.
That's what I'm saying. So before everyone realizes that I've lost that, let me do what I can with it real quick. That's what I feel like it is right now.
This is what's so weird about this, though. On the flip side of that, you could easily argue the other way. You could say that, hey, North Korea last year exploded what everyone believes to be an H-bomb based off of seismic after, whatever, all these things that we read and saw. So maybe Kim Jong-un's game was, let's get to the point where we really make them piss their pants. Maybe Kim Jong-un's whole goal all along was going to be to denuclearize in some way, but they were going to get the capability of that technology along the way to make sure that they didn't have regime change. I think that's what the Kims have been scared about for 60 years. It's been regime change. I don't think that they are like, I just think that the Kim family just wants to stay in power however
Here's
they can.
The thing,
and I think that there was discussions a long time ago, way before Kim Jong-un was even born, that says the long plan is we need to get this power, or else because of the way they were treating people and the way that communism was just leaving a blight on their country and making them look terrible as far as their human rights record, they were like, the only way we're going to keep power is if we have the nuclear capability to do so. Otherwise, if we don't have that capability, somehow, some way, all the powers are going to come in and say, you guys suck, which they did, putting it mildly, and say, we need someone else here. They're trying to make sure they stay in power. That could be an argument. Could be.
Certainly. But here's the thing: if they're being self-preservationist and they're trying to come to the table and they're trying to negotiate a bit, maybe talking about denuclearization, if they get that and we ask them to like modernize and open up society a bit, you know, if their citizens get any sort of outside exposure to media outside of what the North Korean state has been churning out, and people start to really realize the extent of how much Kim Jong-un has abused his people, he's got to be scared of some sort of backlash. Like, horrible things have been committed under his administration. So I don't know, if you give his citizens any level of freedom, they might want blood. They might want to turn on him completely. How do you let a guy like this stay in power? You can't. He's done awful, awful things. So
well, and you know what?
Where can you go from here?
That's why right now, if someone called me, or right now, if someone was asking me questions about how would you grade Trump on all these areas of his presidency, he'd get really low marks from me. But right now, as far as North Korea goes, he gets high marks from me, because I think that sitting down with the leader and so I hesitate to say high marks, but at least decent marks heading in the right direction, because sitting down with this leader is the first step in. If I'm President Trump, my goal is to denuclearize them, got it, but also to open the floodgates of information into that country, because once information and freedom of information comes in, it's only a matter of time. It could take a long time, but it's only a matter of time. If you don't have that iron grip around the internet like they do, and information and stuff like that, and they're exposed to the rest of the world and the benefits of what we like to call capitalism in all its glory, you know, they're just going to slowly come over anyways. That's what history tells us, and I believe it. So that should be President. If that's President Trump's goal and his team, then they're doing a good job. It should be to sure, one, denuclearize them, got it. That's no brainer. But also to just try to get like more freedom to those people, so that they realize, and maybe they can build a revolution on their own over many, many years, and finally topple, you know, what is a terrible, terrible leader in that country. So, because if you just come in guns blazing and you just rip Kim Jong-un out right now, which they could do, there'd be a lot of casualties, but they could do it. They certainly can. If you come in there and you rip him out, then you're completely overnight changing leadership in a country where pretty much a lot of them hate America, period.
Yeah.
It's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. Well, hello, Iraq, right? Like, it's just not going to work. It's tough.
There's going to be a lot of influence from South Korea, though, because surely eventually they want unification, and South Korea is so inundated in Western culture. That might be a big tool in how that's going to progress if things do change rapidly like that. Hopefully in a good, influential type of way.
In a good way, yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. It'll be fascinating to see what plays out. I think the most likely scenario is Caleb's right. Nothing happens. Yeah, that's probably the most likely scenario. But
I don't know, maybe Kim Jong-un might be desperate here. We'll see.
He could be. Like I said, maybe.
Why such a, I mean, let's not forget how quickly he changed his tone. How quickly the rhetoric coming out of Pyongyang changed.
And just because what I said maybe makes sense on some level.
That's what I'm saying. Right. He might be desperate. Something might come of this. I just don't know what. Michael Bolton might just want to start kicking down doors and dropping bombs.
Bro, the worst part is that
Michael Bolton, John Bolton.
If somehow open the door with North Korea.
Sorry, what was that?
If somehow Trump actually opened the door with North Korea,
right,
and things started looking up for North and South Korean relations, and later on, 50 years from now, we find out it's because they had they were out of options. How does that impact the Trump presidency in its history? Does he get reelected because he solve North Korea?
It's definitely a boost. It's definitely a boost,
right? That's a significant boost. And how much of that, right, is because he's actually a statesman, which I think we all agree he's not, or is it just by virtue of situation? Like, no matter who was voted president, they were going to get put in a situation where they would benefit from this. Kind of like with Obama. When Obama
was going to say Bin Laden.
He got I was going to say the other. He got fucked.
Wait, what?
Remember the first year of his presidency, boys?
Oh, when the recession
Financial crisis, bro.
Yeah, of course.
We got fucked from the beginning.
Right, and that's also just a means of circumstance. But I also think
Exactly.
Bin Laden is the same thing. I mean,
yeah, but
how much influence did Obama have in terms of directly finding Bin Laden? I'm sure it was just a matter of time.
Sure, but I also think the bigger difference here is that you're talking about the only war we ever technically lost, and it being for such a long time. It's significantly longer than Obama, Bin Laden. Right.
Right. Of course,
it's much more, in my opinion, I guess.
I'm just saying they're both circumstantial. It could be.
What I'm saying is that the impact is much
did
greater.
bring them to the table. What if we find out that happened? It was actually Trump putting his thumb on the scale. I don't know. You don't know. I mean, to be fair, and I was thinking about this the other day. If you think about how just the general level of acceptance gays have on the right now compared to before Trump was president to after Trump was president, there's a pretty noticeable shift there.
Is there?
Yeah, there definitely is. I mean, also people like Milo Yiannopoulos started becoming real big around the same time,
right?
No, but he's a right-leaning figure, is what I'm saying.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
He's not a right.
See, I always saw him and felt to be just a provocateur. And
I was going to say,
way for him to provoke.
Sure, with the conservative flavor.
Right. That was the best way to provoke, is to be flamboyantly gay, talk about going after priests and sucking big black cock, and all these things that would, of course, incite so many people. That's what I felt like.
But like, it did actually drive. And also, I think the transgender issue helped this along. As unfortunate as it is, the right has now changed their attention towards transgenders, and gays just all of a sudden become accepted. That's kind of what it seems like. I don't know if that's true, but
I think that's not wrong. A little bit.
It's interesting, to say the least.
Yeah. I
don't know.
It moved from yeah.
We'll see if it is Trump. We'll see if it is Trump that's actually.
What I'm about to say is a positive thing.
Doing some good.
But it's
not all good.
Sure.
Sorry, carry on.
What I'm about to say is a positive, even though it's going to sound cruddy. I think it's a step forward when we go from telling people that they're messed up and they, something in their brain is messed up, or they're chemically imbalanced, or like they need to go to pray the gay away. We've taken good strides when we go from that to now telling these people that they can't refer to themselves the way they want that to. I feel like that's another, like, we've gone from, I think, attacking, hang on, just let me finish. We've gone from attacking them as people and saying, you're wrong, you need to change, you need to be straight, you need to be like everybody else, to now all of a sudden we're attacking the fact that they want to define themselves in whatever way they can, which, by the way, they have every right to do. You can call yourself a dog. I don't care. I think do what you want.
Honestly, what I think the root of this disagreement is with the left and the right in terms of transgender issues is the right sees it as a disorder, whereas the left sees it as just an expression of somebody's true self. Right. So, well, that's what the disagreement is, though. I don't think it's a disagreement over pronouns.
That's where I think the disagreement here, at least for me, I should say, is I do not want the government to tell me that I am required to use something that I don't believe in, right? Like, that would be like the government telling me I have to pray to God.
Sure.
I agree with that. Fuck you. Do you have the right to ask me to pray to God? Absolutely. I also have the same right to tell you to fuck off.
I guess I was speaking on a more general level. I think the disagreement on the right is they just don't see it as legitimate, whereas the left wants to see it as legitimate.
And that's fair. I think, I don't know, man. I feel like the ruling is still out on that.
Well, that was the argument.
Compelling evidence both ways, in my opinion.
Right, but wasn't that originally the argument for gay people was it's not natural? It's not natural.
Yeah, of course.
Now we accept it more as a natural part of behavior, and now the disagreement has moved on to transgenderism. Is it either it's not natural or it's something that should be not only included but celebrated? That's the disagreement.
For me, the disagreement, though, and I think for a lot of people, the disagreement is, I'll point to somebody like Jordan Peterson. I don't know how much you guys have heard him talk, but it's more so this idea that the government is going to compel speech.
No, I get that.
Okay,
I understand
so in America, let's cut away all the other countries.
Sure.
They did something in Toronto or something weird, but in America, Caleb, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you. Point to me in America where you have to call them by their pronoun, because you have to. There isn't any. And so why are you upset about it? Why are we even having the conversation? Not you specifically. I'm just saying if you're upset about that, then why are we even having this conversation? Because it doesn't exist in America. It doesn't.
I think the general feeling, and again, it is just a feeling to your point, but the feeling for a lot of people is that if it's spreading, at what point will
what is spreading?
Someone try to,
because there's no government, small or big, that's telling you to do that. So what is spreading?
I mean, I guess the feeling comes from like watching YouTube videos, watching people like a Jordan Peterson come to America and be protested and called a fascist and all sorts of stuff. For what? Because he won't use your pronoun? How many people are out there? How many people are out there fighting that, against that, saying, no, you're wrong, that's terrible? That tells me that here in America, it is a real idea. It's taking hold.
So
yeah, but to a rabid
people
small
have protested
people.
Exactly. How many people have protested Jordan Peterson's speeches?
That's not characteristic.
Maybe 20,000 people. Sure.
On the left, I don't think.
I'm not saying it is characteristic, but what I'm saying is that it's unfortunately right now, given our media, really easy to paint that picture.
Well, then that's the problem with the media,
right? I agree. Well, no, I'm not talking about media. I'm just talking about
opposition.
What's that?
Stop creating a straw man out of your opposition. That's lazy.
Yeah, but everyone does it. I agree with you, but everyone does it. So how do you fight that?
A lot of people do it. I don't think everyone does it, but yeah, it's lazy. It's lazy engagement.
I think we're even guilty of doing the straw man.
Sure, I mean,
of course,
everyone's guilty of it.
Yeah,
the issue that I have is that there's not a lot of people, quite frankly, that are, I don't want to say intelligent enough, but don't have the time to read up and have conversations like this to challenge each other's beliefs in a way that is productive. That doesn't. Again,
I disagree with that, though. I think a lot of people just don't want their beliefs challenged. They're
isn't that what's wrong?
They believe. Of course, there's something wrong with that, but that's what I'm saying. I don't think the problem is people are uneducated. I think people choose to just be steadfast and knowingly ignorant in what they believe. Because once you get serious about it, you have to actually challenge it. But it's easier to just leave.
So if I continue to extrapolate that, right? If you're facing the same challenge, if Cyril's facing the same challenge, if the fascist far right asshole is facing the same challenge as the retarded far left, right?
Communist.
Sure. I don't care what you call them. You can call them whatever the hell you want. But if they're facing the same challenge that you're facing, what is the natural way, the easiest way to provoke people to react? Is to make a straw man, right? Is to do that. And I feel like that's what we're seeing, and that's what people are scared of.
But progress doesn't get made.
They're scared of, oh my God, do you remember Charlottesville? All those Nazis? That was just 300 people out of 300 million. That's not representative of what's happening, right? And that's the same argument you're making for me, in my point. And I think the issue is, and I'm guilty of this, is looking at this and saying, oh my God, there might be a problem here. When there probably really isn't. There's like a handful of people that believe in this. Whatever. So they can believe whatever they want.
Let's talk about why this might be an issue. And I say that like this. I'd like to know what you guys think, because you might wildly disagree with this. I don't know. But Caleb mentioned, the Jordan Petersons of the world and how they get protesters. Isn't Jordan Peterson the one stirring the pot by even starting the discussion? Why doesn't he just leave it alone? Aren't these guys the ones that stir the pot?
No.
Why don't they just leave it alone?
Why would you go after him when there's and again, I know you want to talk about specifically America, but I can't do this in this example. But in this example, you're talking about Canada. Wouldn't somebody wait? Don't, you gotta let me finish.
No, you're fine.
Even wouldn't somebody be provoking by introducing legislation that would compel speech? Wouldn't that be the first step? Is it Jordan Peterson that's stirring the pot, or is it people that want to legislate this?
Yes, but my rebuttal would be actually look up the law that Jordan Peterson refers to. It's not good, but it's not as bad as you think.
Sure,
it's not good. It's not as bad as you think. Sure.
His point, though, is that again, just like everybody's point, is the snowball effect, right? Well, if you're compelling speech here, where else are you compelling speech? And quite frankly, to his point, from a clinical psychologist point of view, if you're compelling speech in such a way that requires someone to identify a certain way, right? If we continue to expand that, and let's talk about scientific studies,
Mm-hmm.
We know that biologically there are males and females. Now, there are absolutely, and I would not disagree with this, a small group of people that are, hermaphrodites or have all sorts of different issues there. But generally speaking, we base a lot of our medical diagnoses come from the fact that, are you a man or a woman? You're more likely to have testicular cancer if you're a man, right? Well, it's hard to do those studies if you can't ask somebody if they are a man or a woman. If they can refer to themselves to whatever they want, right? You can have skewed studies now, which make it that much more difficult to diagnose a medical problem.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the scientific community is having an issue with this. I think it's more of a social issue.
I think it is, but I think there's absolutely merit to talking about how this might impact us other than in a social way.
Again, I'm kind of inclined to agree with Cyril. It's more of a mountain out of a molehill type deal, but I understand what the discontent is.
Well, I think
but again, it's not communist social Marxism absolutely taking over and inundating our government and dictating our everyday behavior.
Right.
You know what I mean? But
there can't be some things that we like. Well, no, I don't even like.
But I guess what I don't understand is why you guys, especially you two, are so against somebody pointing out something that they feel like is an issue, and you guys are like, "Wow, it's not an issue." It seems like you're.
I'm not saying it's not an issue.
Well, I'm merely pointing it out.
Well, what do you mean by that?
But,
no, go ahead. I don't really.
When I bring up like the Jordan Peterson thing, you guys tend to. Well, it seems like I should say, right? My perception of the way you're reacting to it is well, who gives a fuck? Well, obviously somebody gives a fuck, right? There's a lot of things that we don't give a fuck about that a lot of people care about a lot.
So the better option, how about this? Is the better option to just not worry about it and walk away, or is the better option to stand there and complain about it?
I think the better option is to stand there and have a legitimate discussion as to why we're doing something.
Oh, sure. But
also, again, you're brushing it off.
No, because I'm not brushing it off. You're literally correct. That is the best option. I'll make it as clear as possible. Okay. You are right. Okay. But at the end of the day, people are going to feel how they feel, and you can just walk away. You don't have to sit there. So I think what you're saying is right, but I think a lot of people like you might get upset about, correct me if I'm wrong, is they'll, you want to have a discussion, but then they get all fired up and say, just use my pronoun. And then that's when you're just like, well, they're just not reasonable. It's like, why don't you just walk away? Why don't you have to sit there and disparage it and break out? Not you.
No, I hear you. I'll tell you why people feel compelled to do that. Is because they feel like if they are not trying to have the same conversation, or at least show people the other side of the argument, then the general public will accept the one side of the argument if nobody else is talking about the other side. So in effect, those people feel like by not engaging in this conversation, by not saying, hey, what about these things that I think and that I care about, you're actively being passive in a situation that you don't agree with. I get that. I understand where you're coming from, because at the same time, the people who want to be referred to as Z or Zer or whatever other pronouns there are, I don't know how many there are. I know those two, but those people also feel the same way, and they're also feeling compelled to fight this, because if they don't, they're just going to get pushed by the wayside. No one's going to give a fuck about them. So and then what I enjoy about this specifically is, for me, it's the eternal struggle of ideas in society. And in order to have those properly, and it's very difficult to do, it's people like, and I don't want to say us because we're just a couple of cast bags, but right, we're a couple of idiots, but people who are well read on these subjects have to have these discussions in a public forum so that we can all collectively understand both sides. But the problem is a third side and a fourth side, right? I don't know how many sides there are, but I'm aware of two.
Sure.
When the rhetoric gets so bad between your voting citizens that it bleeds into your politics and you can't actually make any progress anymore.
Well, progress is going to continue without politics, right? Society is always going to push the bounds one way or another, and eventually it's reflected in our politics, right? The problem, I think, the frustration for most people is that our politics are not able to keep up with the speed of ever-changing technology in society, right? Politics is like 15 years behind society and technology, right?
So I think
gotta fix that.
I agree with you, but it's not an easy thing to do. That's all.
Going back to what Caleb said earlier,
I can do it.
I understand where you're coming from as far as framing it.
Chad 2020.
I see where Caleb's coming from as far as trying to frame it in terms of public opinion matters and they kind of want to throw their voice in.
Right.
But I, one, don't believe that they're throwing their voice in because they're trying to shape public opinion. I just think that's how they feel, which is fine. That's not a big deal. I just think that's how they feel. And two, I don't really care about that. Okay. I go back to, and I'll tell you why. I go back to, if they're not doing anything that directly affects or hurts you, then walk away and leave it alone. Don't. Sure. Why would you get there? Why? Hang on, let me just finish. Yeah. Why would you stand on your soapbox, pick up your megaphone, and espouse what I see to be a little bit of the things that Jordan Peterson and other people say, whether we like it or not, affects these people, right? When they are told you shouldn't be doing that, you want to do this and you shouldn't, that affects them mentally, right? So I go back to, if they're not hurting you, if it's not directly affecting you, how they want to be told, how they want to be called, then just walk away.
Right. And again, I think this is what Cyril and I keep trying to say is that, yeah, obviously you want to grind at the idea of government agencies trying to police language, but at the same time, is this going to lead to a slippery slope of like a huge book of governmental regulations about how we should socialize with each other? Is that what this is just naturally going to devolve into?
I mean,
I'd be very hard pressed to believe that was true.
When you look around though, and I don't say this as my opinion specifically. I feel like I'm attempting to convey what those who specifically believe this would convey.
Sure.
If you look around and you see China doing, what are they doing now? Aren't they doing like a social rating scale now?
Oh, that's terrible. Yeah. I saw that.
Yeah.
Right. That when you have that happening, granted on the other side of the ocean, that doesn't affect you, and you see that, you go, oh my God,
that's never gonna happen in America.
But
but you can't say never, right?
You can't say never, but also like, come on, we're gonna talk about China.
So the historicity of this country and its citizens. I'd be very hard pressed to believe we devolve into a complete police state like that.
I do.
That's all I'm saying.
We can't just agree.
We're Americans. We protest.
We can't just agree to not.
We do, but Chad, wouldn't some people argue? I'm sorry, Cyril. Wouldn't some people argue that because we protest so hard is the reason why we're not in that state?
That's what I'm saying. It would never happen.
But if people took your word for it and said, "Hey, don't worry about it, just walk away."
Oh, there's always a protester willing to waste the day.
Sure, but
you time off.
You've relinquished that power though to help make that decision. That's what a lot of people feel like. And to be fair, if I'm defending Peterson,
it's like if you give an inch, they're going to take a mile. It's just not. I don't think it's going to happen.
See, I don't know, man.
So and sometimes what was if let's break down the law specifically in Canada, right? Sure. So I guess it was if somebody told you that they prefer a certain pronoun and you repeatedly go out of your way to call them specifically by the pronoun they don't want you to refer to them as, then you might be fined, right? And that's just like, obviously that's. And again, we need the government to step in on this? But if a guy's going out, if somebody's like, hey, I would rather be referred to as a he, and every day went out of his way to refer to this person as she, it's like, you're just being a dick.
You're being a complete cock.
And again, why do we need the government to regulate that? But at the same time, it's not going to devolve into the government.
I get you, but that's the point right there, Chad.
We now control all of your speech.
Why do you need the government to regulate it?
You shouldn't. Because people are such a small thing. It's not going to devolve into full-blown fascist police state regulating.
No, I get that. I understand that. But the point here is, you literally just said that we shouldn't be. Why are we policing this? Like, if you have to,
it's not going to lead to anything.
Why are we?
So once again, we're not policing. We're not policing this. We're not. We're literally not.
Okay, let's talk about Canada. That's what tried to happen. Correct.
All right, fine.
And obviously, it was defeated. Yes, I'm with you there. My point is,
I didn't know that.
I think it was defeated, right? I don't think they voted.
I have no idea.
Well, let's take a look. Somebody like Google.
Go ahead.
But my point is that somebody tried to do it. Somebody tried to get this passed. Somebody sponsored this bill. Somebody said, "Yeah, this is something that we need to fight."
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Because there are special interests on every side.
Right.
Sure, but that doesn't devoid the question. Why? You're not answering the question. Well, obviously you guys aren't defending these people specifically.
Because there is a group of people who feel that this is appropriate, and they want it to happen.
So if there's an opposite and equally large group of people that say this is ridiculous, then what?
Then vote.
And then we vote, and then what happens?
if you vote appropriately and people are paying attention,
what does that mean?
Whatever the majority wants to happen will happen.
And that's, I guess I'm trying to convey how people on this side of the argument would feel. And to be fair, I have to throw this in. Hold on.
Yeah.
You have to throw this in with Jordan Peterson real quick.
Mm-hmm.
He specifically states all the time that this has nothing to do with somebody asking him to use a pronoun. He has no problem doing that.
I understand.
So
if
this doesn't have anything to do with that, then why is he so passionate about it? Because, and this is why, and I go back to what I said before. Because if they're not hurting you, this has been my life motto for way too long, dude. If you're not bothering me and you're not hurting me, I don't give a crap.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. Hold on. Let me ask you this. Does North Korea affect you in any way, shape, or form? Those people suffering?
It could.
How?
It could.
How?
It could, because they might shoot a nuke over here and I might die. So that would affect me.
I'm talking about those people who are suffering, who are actually starving. Those people do not affect you, right? Therefore, according to you, just walk away.
Absolutely. I agree. Yep. Walk away. Let the North Koreans deal with North Korea. No, I seriously. How about we have problems here? How about deal with that first?
No,
I'm America first.
Okay. What about
the international community should just sit back.
So and
Armenian genocide, Rwanda genocide.
If there is any sort of nuanced or down the road repercussion to me, then yes, that matters because it could happen to me. So I obviously, hang on, let me finish.
Yeah,
obviously, there's levels to this ish. There's directly happening to you right away or down the road or whatever.
Right.
Okay. But yeah, if it affects me, then yes. And you might be able to argue somehow, some way, someone wanting me to call them a certain way affects me. But I just don't see how that's the case. I just don't see how.
And that's fine. But why would you?
Is that really the hill you want to stand on? Like,
no, I feel like what you're doing right now, though, is trying to delegitimize other people's.
No, I'm telling you why I feel the way I do. It's because it doesn't bother me. That's all I'm doing.
It's just like how much of an actual inconvenience would it be if this law were enacted?
And I think I kind of see why.
I mean, if I look at it correctly, it's right. Isn't there 78 pronouns?
See, I also change.
There's not enough transgender people in any given community to actively.
So
you have to know.
So exaggerated.
Let me ask you a different question. For those who are, I don't know the terminologies that well. What's the sexuality of which you change all the time, like that fluid?
Gender fluid.
Gender fluid.
Yeah.
What if you come in and you're gender fluid, and today you feel like a woman, and I call you a dude, and then tomorrow you come in as a dude, and I call you a woman, and I'm just trying to keep up. Now I know that's an extreme. I'm putting that out there.
I'm glad we're protecting people from situations like that. Okay. That sounds like such a commonplace.
Oh, I know, it's every day. But okay, let's run with it. I would say this is how.
I guess at what point though? Okay,
I had a rebuttal. All right.
Sure.
So I would say
you don't have to engage with those people.
One day, and that's exactly where I was going to go with this. One day they say.
But if I don't engage with them, they'll tell me that I'm being. I don't know what a racist is for gender, but.
No, they aren't, because you're just walking away. Why would they care when they see you walk away?
I mean, you can treat them with common
courtesy. Come on,
you have to engage with them, but you don't have to actively engage with them.
And what I was
why do I have to treat them with common courtesy? Some people are just born assholes.
Oh, sorry. Okay, you have a right to be an asshole. I didn't know we were debating the rights to be an ass.
Harassing and stalking is illegal, and depending on how far you go in being an asshole, you will be put in jail, and you should be.
That's true. Yep.
Two. I think.
Okay, let's.
I can't even finish my story.
Sorry.
Two, you're good. And two, I would say if he was a she yesterday, and she told you to call it, I hate to say it like that, he that day, then just deal with it. And if you don't like it, then walk away. Because I really don't think that there's any number of people that would just like be upset.
Okay, so let's.
So today. It says, and I hate saying like that, Jesus Christ, but it says, I'm a guy today. Can you please call me by a guy? After you called her it a she, right? Okay. And then what would you do, Caleb? I assume you would just adjust. Fine, no problem.
I mean, yeah, I would.
The next day, if he is all of a sudden a she, and you said, "Hey, guy," and then guy was like, "Hey, I feel like a girl today. Can you call me by that?" I feel like you just would. Like, why is that a big deal?
Caleb goes, this is too much work. This is a load on my shoulders.
And that's fine. Just walk away then.
But okay, so what about forced interaction? What if I'm a barista and you come
find another job
to get another? That's bullshit. You can't fucking say that.
So why can't I say that? Wait a minute.
Why do I have to find another job? Why can't
you're the one that's bothered? They're not bothered.
They are bothered. No, that's complete horseshit. They are absolutely bothered because those are the ones trying to make it a fucking law, Cyril.
No, they're not.
But also, this person's.
Well, hang on. This person's just coming in every day, correcting you whenever you get it wrong. That's all. And you're not wrong, Caleb. That is literally them being bothered by correcting you. So I would say in this scenario, this person is what most people, if not pretty much every single person I've ever run to in society, is a level-headed person.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Right?
We deal with this in different types of ways all the time. I know for a fact that I've experienced where an older gentleman was just in a habit of calling girls like honey sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And one girl said, "Hey, I just don't feel comfortable with you referring to me as that." And that was just resolved civilly between two people. You don't need any sort of intervention.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there.
And again, this is why I disagree with the law. But at the same time, like, just deal with it civilly. Because, Caleb, you're proposing this one example where somebody is gender fluid and keeps swapping every other day about what they'd like to be referred to. But you could also have the flip side of that where somebody prefers to be referred to as a she and the other person is actively harassing that person, going out of their way to refer to them as a he. It's like,
I get you, but I guess my point here, though, is there's already
civil people.
I'm with you. You're absolutely correct. So why can't we just say, if you're being a dick like that for so long, you just get prosecuted under harassment laws? What do we need another law for?
Sure. Again, these are the civil types of right battles we fight today. They're not as
that's true.
You know what I mean?
And then if you are that much of a dick and you go that far, you are going to have to find another job because you working with that person is clearly not going to happen anymore.
Yeah, I guess the bigger we're saying here is everybody can do whatever they want as long as it affects themselves and just be civil-minded, normal people. There we go. Job done. No more disagreement.
Well, and oh, Jesus. But what I'll add on to the end of that is I get a little sick and tired of people acting like society's falling apart. It's not. It's just not. So whenever we go to the extreme and say like, like these people are crazy and we have crazies out there, there's no question we do, but they're so small and few and far between. I bet you Caleb has interacted with trans he didn't even realize were trans, homosexuals who never even brought up, people who Caleb or even I or Chad called them by the wrong pronoun and they just didn't care. This is why when we have discussions like this isn't a big deal. It's just not, this is my small world, but I've been a lot of places. I've never seen this kind of craziness. Like this person called this person by the wrong pronoun and then that person got upset because it happened and then told them to change it. And the other person kept harassing them. Like I've literally never seen that. That's crazy.
No,
most people are civil. Right.
Well, this is the problem with straw manning online because people are getting more angry and more angry at people that are probably just level-headed. But all these level-headed people start assuming everybody on the other side is just this monster and has to be fought at every angle. It's like, can we just be people?
Right. And then young people are trolls online. So even though they don't believe in it, they troll older people on Fox News. And then Fox News is like, look at these tweets. These people exist. Really, it's just trolls online trolling Fox News. Like, great, here we go.
Well, and a lot of these
ridiculous
that we always end up in the place of, as a group, as a society, what the fuck are we really doing?
Right.
We're all stuck together, unfortunately. So you might as well just fucking work together.
Sure.
I feel like people would rather watch this country burn before they worked with certain groups of people. That's insane. That is
that is insane. I guess for me though, when it comes to compelled speech, the same reason you just said, why can't we just deal with it, is also the same reason I would say, well, why were you talking about a law for this?
Right, exactly. No, I'm with you there. I totally
that's
get
for me, where I completely land on is right there. Is like, I agree with you. Let's just deal with it as grown ass people. Let's realize that some people, very small, very tiny select group of people, are not grown ass people and can't deal with it. And we do have laws in place that actually do kind of protect you, right? If you're harassed, if you're constantly being called something you don't want to be called, right? If somebody had used the N-word at a black person for an extended period of time, I'm pretty sure you would get prosecuted for that. And I feel like that's no different.
Sure. Yeah.
There are a strange amount of people, and I don't know how you guys will feel about this statement, but there are a strange amount of people who live in a very free society compared to history of human beings and act like there's some deep state conniving, society's falling apart, Obama killed everything and destroyed everything, Muslim from Kenya, that I just don't get it. I really don't get it. And beyond that, did you ever think we live in a time where a candidate wins the election, literally wins the election, and the next 2 years, everybody, that candidate and everybody around that candidate and everybody who supports them literally keeps using the word deep state. Like Sean Hannity goes on TV every night and says deep state. And it's like, wait a minute, Republicans are in all control. So the deep state is Republicans? Like,
no,
I don't
inside
really...
the intelligence agencies, and they're loyal to Obama.
This? I never thought I'd live in a world where they won and they still claim there's like some conspiracy out there. It's like, dear God, what have we done to ourselves? What have we done? Trump won. Does he know that? I don't know. Someone's got to tell him. Good night.
Dear Mr. President, you are actually in control.
Deep state.
There is
looking to cut off Trump at every corner. Wait, what?
To be fair, there have been a large amount of leakers in his administration. He's had to deal with a lot of leaks.
I can tell you my theory on that.
Go on.
Trump surrounds himself with people who are just out for them, and so they leak because they do it.
Yeah, right.
When you read into the leak and you know where it came from. Yeah, if the leak says Jared Kushner's amazing, but Steve Bannon's terrible, you can pretty much figure out where that leak came from. If the leak says Steve Bannon's great, but oh man, John Kelly's terrible. All right, I think I know where that leak came from.
Well, you know what's interesting? There was a bit of concern there for a while because Melania Trump hadn't made any public appearances.
Oh, I know.
And then all of a sudden on her Twitter, she posted this message that was like suspiciously, it sounded exactly how Trump would word one of his tweets.
Seriously? No way.
Yeah, it was just weird. It was like, what's going on there?
All right, we can. I'm trying.
Obviously, that's a bit of a derail, but
no worries. I was going to say we can wrap up because I'm gonna.
Yeah, we can end it. Let's end it on.
What's interesting about you guys talking about the deep state thing? One last thought is, and I think I've brought this up before on this podcast. Is I'm trying to remember where I read it. I tried to do like Google just now,
Reddit.
but it's no, not on Reddit. It was from an old book, a play, and it's two guys. They're talking about the printing press. This is back in, the 1400s, 1500s, whenever the printing press was first made. And the one guy was talking to the other guy. He's like, now any fucking idiot can write a book. It doesn't have to be right, true or false. It doesn't have to be cited by anybody, right? And now here we are in 2018. Well, any fucking idiot can run a YouTube channel and spout off whatever kind of ridiculous bullshit they want.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Right? Yep. And then, 100 years from now, it's going to be like, oh, well, fucking any idiot can
instantaneously their thoughts,
right, and tell you some sort of stupid ass bullshit while you're sleeping. You know what I mean? Like, I find that very interesting that as we go throughout time, that's always the critique. Is like, well, idiot can do this.
I think that as far as humanity goes, we haven't figured out how not to destroy ourselves yet. We are not outside of that zone where we can destroy ourselves either by not being able to control information on a level that we have it now, or climate change runaway, or nuclear war. Who knows? I don't think we're outside that zone yet. I think it's going to be another little while. And I want to make it clear, I don't think this way just because of Trump. That's not it at all. I felt this way for a while. Like, we live in interesting times in humanity where we're a blink of the eye as far as our lives, but our lives are in that tipping point period between we evolved enough to be cognizant and have this incredible intelligence ability. Can we make it through that zone where we can not trip over ourselves? We're not outside of it yet. I don't think we are.
We got to get to a first tier civilization.
Sure, I've seen that.
Got to manage to not destroy ourselves, and then efficiently harness the power of the sun or some shit like that.
The Kardashev scale.
Yeah,
type 1 civilization, type 1 planetary civilization can use
here we go, Wikipedia.
All the energy which reaches its planet from its parent star.
Can I just round this out on one last thing? Because I posted
right after I say this. I see the media is working overtime speculating where I am and what I am doing. Rest assured, I'm here at the White House with my family, feeling great and working hard on behalf of children and the American people.
Like, I'm sure that there isn't anything sinister there, but it really does sound like Donald Trump wrote that tweet out for Melania.
Oh, sure.
It's just weird.
Right. Go ahead, Chad. Now you can end.
Oh, yeah. So I posted this clip. I posted it in the Hangouts, and I posted it in this little sidebar here. I'd like us all just take 30 seconds to remind ourselves.
I've seen this 1,000 times, dude.
Well, I got to see. So this
Straight
is called
1,000 times.
Rick Perry's "Gays Serve Openly in the Military" ad. Let's see. I've not seen this before.
Oh, man. Have you not?
No, hold on.
I've definitely shown this to you guys before. I have to have. Have you seen the parody? It's pretty good.
What?
I just love the music that accompanies it.
Because it's like
it's great.
It's like nice music, but then he's like hateful as heck, and you're like, what in the world is going on?
Yeah. Yo, you guys must have been in the military while this debate was going on, right? Or Caleb must have been.
I wasn't.
Rick
Caleb
Perry.
was.
Rick Perry.
Crazy. Because he's like, yo, listen, gays can openly serve in the military. That's wrong. And you know what else is wrong? We can't celebrate a commercialized holiday to the extent that we would like to in our schools.
Also, kids can't pray. Kids can pray. What are you talking about? They can sit there and pray whenever they want. What do you like?
No, they can't.
No, dude, the cultural attitudes, you'll get ridiculed, Cyril.
Dude, first of all, stop it. And
first of all, that's
you will get stuffed into a locker.
Okay. Well, Cry Me a River. I wasn't religious when I was younger, and I got ridiculed like crazy. So give me a break. Cry Me a freaking river.
First of all, you were religious. You graduated Awana.
Second of all, I was not. I
I'm a graduate.
I can remember the time and place when I first had the thought process of this is dumb.
Cubbies, Sparkies, Awana, and I'm pretty sure Cyril went farther in
Sparkies.
Farther in the word of life than anyone in our family.
I did. I went pretty far. Because it was what I was supposed to do, and so I did it. Listen, I just show up and do what I'm told. Okay, that's what I do.
Sure, that's fair.
Especially when I'm 14,
figure it out,
Dad's like, "Hey, you need to get get together and put it in a backpack." Son.
It was nice at one point because I was going through Awana, and Caleb and Andrew Hollister were like group leaders. They were youth group leaders.
Playing ball.
Hell yeah.
So Caleb would just let me slide on being real shit on my verses. Do you remember that, having to recite those verses? And Caleb would be like, all right, dude. Like, nice.
Caleb's like, dude. Caleb's like, sounds great. I'm going to go to the gym. I'll be playing ball.
Yep. Well, I mean, if you want to be honest, I felt like I was being respectful. I don't believe in your religion, so I'm not going to stick around for the sermon. I'm going to play ball right quick, though.
Yeah, right.
And specifically for the verses, too, Chad would be like, 1 John.
Dude, I went to a wedding with Val last summer, and it was a super Catholic wedding. It was a super Catholic wedding, and I told Val, I was like, I'm not taking part in communion. There's a communion. I was like, I'm not taking part because I don't believe. I'm not going to be disrespectful. She comes back at me with this. It's disrespectful to not partake. I'm like, well, I guess we're on different pages of this because that's not where I'm at, dude. She's like, you just have to partake. You just got to do it. I was the only one that didn't, and I stood strong.
You should have been like loud. Should have been loud as shit. You'd be like, man, this crack tastes like shit.
Nah. Jesus ain't shit on some potato chips.
Yo, I got one more. I got one more before I kind of want to play a couple games of Rocket League with you guys. But hang on.
Do you have one more?
What is it? Is it just a piece of bread that they give you? Is it just like a crisp?
It's the world's shittiest wafer.
Is it a wafer?
Mm-hmm.
Can I buy these on Amazon? Like,
I'm sure you can.
Are you ready for the greatest legitimate political ad in history? It is now posted.
Oh, here we go.
Does anybody remember one Herman Cain? Ooh.
Where did you put it?
Oh my god!
The depths of 2012 Republican primaries.
Herman Cain.
Wait.
Just keep watching it, dude. It's the most awkward thing.
I'm watching.
Do you remember when Stephen Colbert made fun of this?
Okay, pause. I'm pausing this immediately. I'm 6 seconds in.
I'm trying to watch this, dude.
You've got no production value here. Just saying.
Oh, 0. Just go to the end. Just go to the end.
What is happening?
I love the zooming in. Yo, that end on his face.
That slow smile.
So the big deal about that ad was it was the smoking. They were like, dude, such upfront.
The
like,
smile, dude. The build up to the smile.
What?
It's so great.
You know what this, honestly, you know what this makes me want to do?
America.
Funny or Die did a Mike Tyson. Oh, go ahead, Caleb.
Yo, this makes me want to make a separate YouTube channel that specifically does like H3 versions of political videos.
It's so stupid, dude.
Chad, think about it.
That'd be amazing.
Just a super close up of my face with a creepy smile.
Yo, there's also one point where his campaign manager says "you" in like the weirdest way. He's like "yo." I'm like, what the heck?
I thought he said two, like TWO, like two.
No, I think maybe he says it's so weird. I don't know.
We need you to come out to. I don't know what the fuck he says, man.
We need you.
We need
come
you.
out. Chad, if you want to watch the Stephen Colbert,
smoke a ciggy real quick, though.
it's if you want to see the Stephen Colbert one, it's right there to the right.
Oh, I'm watching it now. Actually, if you click on that, it'll take you to the exact moment.
Pause
that,
it. Oh,
what?
okay. Pause it. If you did you go to the Stephen Colbert new super PAC ad for South Carolina?
Yes. Yeah.
Read the comments. This was actually filed with the FEC.
Wait, what was it?
In the comments, it says this was actually filed with the FEC.
This aired on TV.
What, Stephen Colbert's? Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Dude, he doesn't.
He got $1 million for a super PAC.
He did.
Holy shit! What did he do with that super PAC? Latest and greatest super PAC ad by the definitely not coordinating with Stephen Colbert super PAC. What? Dude, if you click on the link I posted, though, it'll take you to the exact moment that Stephen Colbert starts. That fucking smile at the end is incredible.
I know, dude. It's so slow and so loud. I think I liked Stephen Colbert, his persona more than his show now.
I agree.
But there's no question that in this day and age, when we look back, Stephen Colbert is going to be he's a big player, man. His commentary is he's just like he's one of those guys that moves the needle. Like he has a lot of influence. He does.
You know what's crazy too is John Oliver came through his show, and John Oliver is doing the same exact thing now. He definitely moves the needle, which is crazy. And he does so more explicitly. He gets like sometimes at the end of every episode, there's like some actual real world thing that they did. Like when they erased all that medical debt. It was the greatest, was it the biggest giveaway?
The biggest medical or whatever it was.
Biggest award given out in
$14 million. He just presses the button and everyone just starts freaking out like, we did it.
Well, it's crazy because they bought that $14 million worth of debt for like 60 grand or something like that. That's fucking insane.
Dude, this is
crazy.
This is how debt collectors make a lot of money, dude.
It's insane. I might as well open up a debt collecting company.
I promise you, if you Google debt collection in Rochester or any city, there's so many. There's way more than you think. It's a very lucrative business.
It's crazy.
Very lucrative. Dude, we bank a lot. Not a lot, but we bank a good amount of debt collectors. But we have to shake out a lot of the turds because it's naturally just like a weird, shady business.
I'm sure there's plenty of shadiness there.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Well, I think we've.
This is all getting edited out. This is all.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Well, we might as well stop it now then. Hold on.
I actually cannot play.